And then finally, the theme of the coming week is now available for you to download off the website. So just go to community and you can scroll down, and the theme of the next couple weeks is going to be the villain. If you want to download your resource pack, just go here, and that's it. It's going. I have everything included in there. I have this debrief that you have to read before you design your character, and of course you have to follow the template. It's so simple. It's so easy. There's the villain quote, the villain name, the villain design space right here, and the villain backstory. I included a PSD version and a JPEG if you don't use Photoshop. Okay, so I don't know how many more are going to come in, but I'm just going to get started with the critiques. I wanted to help out this person a little bit more because their 14-day challenge is really, really promising. I'm so proud of their improvement, and I really want to see where it goes. I really want to be a part of the people that are critiquing this person and rooting them on and cheering them on, with flags and those little thingies that people blow in soccer tournaments and streamers and all kinds of fun stuff. I can't wait to see this person succeed and graduate the challenge. It is really tough challenging yourself. You basically reach the end of your rope when you're painting every single one every single day. So being able to push yourself past what you didn't know you had the ability to, past a skill point you didn't know you had, is really, really a success in and of itself. So I'm really proud of this person. I want to push them a little bit further, talk a little bit more about form signatures and how to take advantage of them to make a more successful rendition of a human face and the function and the form therein. So I'm going to start off with the difference between bone structure and fat. Before I do, let me see if there's anyone saying anything. Enough talk about the weather. On to more important matters, pressing matters. Differences in density between fat and skeleton. Everybody ready? Everyone ready for class? Everyone can hear me okay, right? There's no riddle, rattle, prittle, prattle. There isn't. It's not telling me there is. Let me get out of this because it's going to lag me to death. Yeah, okay. All the volumes are okay. Alright, sorry about that, YouTube. Let's get started. What I wanted to cover was how this area here should be a little bit more gradual. There should be a bit more graduation between the values. And that's because what you're representing here is the bone of the cheekbone. And if we look at the skeleton, let's just search up a skeleton real quick. If we look up a skeleton or skull, whoops, we can see how this area is hollowed out right along here, but this massive bone area sticks out. This creates a space for these harsh edges that are unblended to represent that the bone is piercing through the flesh. Not piercing, but it's suggesting its density. Look at this beauty. And over here is where all the fat hangs. So here there is a more chance to create a wider spectrum between the shades because there's fat in this area. Also, be very, very aware which is going to be something you meet a lot as you do the 14-day challenge, is for some reason everyone feels like it's okay to outline the lips. The lips are part of something that I call a beard, which I referred to last class. It's a very specific shadow, the main shadow, the core shadow that comes out of the skeleton as well as the flesh on top of it. So you can't really see it here because the light's coming from here. The light's coming from above, but excuse the macabre. But I guess over here, if the chin was a little bit, if the mouth was closed, we would have less contrast down here and higher contrast up here because this area is more exposed. So if you break this down to its most basic geometry, well, this is a bad example. You'll get the sphere of the skull, or the spherish, squarish shape of the skull, which always has the core shadow on the opposite side of the light. If the light's coming from above, the core shadow is going to be at the bottom. So don't outline your lips. All right, don't outline them with white. Just there's no transition. There's no extra paperwork. It's just gray and then the skin tone, or the lip pigment color, the pig tone, the lip tone shade. Okay. Um, I'm new to this channel. What is the 14-day challenge? Okay, 14-day challenge is drawing a portrait for 14 days in a row every single day. You have to redraw it again. You have to start it over again every time. You don't reuse. That's really the most important thing. Because it makes you learn faster. It makes you paint faster. It makes you learn a faster way to paint something. You also have to have a critique. This is the most vital part of the 14-day challenge. You have to have a critique from someone. Someone has to critique your work. It's really important that you do, because at the same time you're grayscaling, you're learning about form, you're learning about anatomy, you're learning about beauty, you're learning about gender tropes and differences, you're learning about form signatures. You also want to learn about dealing with critiques and knowing that you don't know everything, and that even though you might think you've reached the end of your rope of skill, every single day, by day 3, you're like, holy shit, how much better can I draw this? I'm pretty much stuck. Believe me, you can draw it so much better if you get a critique. If without the critiques, you won't pass your threshold. That's what the 14-day challenge is. Okay, so that's what I want you guys to try. I want you guys to sort of challenge yourselves with it. It's a really great challenge. It forces you to out of your comfort zone, which is the best landscape for learning. So I'm going to carry the shadow that you have here all the way around, because it doesn't just end here. It continues all the way up along the quarter, the side, the cube of the head. And this connects all the way there. Oh my God, it's raining. Thank God. In Islam, like where I grew up, the culture I grew up with, rain is considered like the doors of heaven are open when it rains. So I've always been like associated with just peace and happiness. I love the rain. I love the rain. If I could live somewhere where it rained all day, probably like Seattle or something, I would go there just for the fact that it rains every single day. You see what I'm doing? I'm just trying to connect the four quarters. So what I'm saying is there's 2 main shadows you need to remember when doing a 14-day challenge with the light coming from above. The half shadow on half of the face, not this way, but the beard, I call it. And then the shadows here and here. These shadows represent the fact that the head is part of a cube. Alright, so this is the cube. Alright, and these pieces move back. They move behind. And they don't get any light, because if you break it down to its most basic polygon, these edges, I drew it really bad, but these edges here and these edges here are all part of a polygon, right? And this polygon kind of just twists in from the sides, like that. So this lower half that twists down, you see how this is the highest peak and then it starts going down? That's why the beard happens. So don't forget to add those in and try to sculpt around the skeleton. There's no way that fat can change the shading of a skeleton. There's no way that if you throw a piece of if you throw a piece of fabric on a cube, that piece of fabric is going to take the shape of the cube. The piece of fabric is the skin, the cube is the skeleton. So malleable densities inherit the form of non-malleable densities. Does everyone understand that? A really basic principle. This has no spine to it. It coats, skin coats around the geometry that sits under the skin, which is the skeleton. If you memorize the highest points and the lowest points on a skull, you'll remember that these are the highest points and the lowest points on the body, except on the face, except the nose, which is replaced by cartilage. So face without skin. I'm so sorry about what's coming. Please, please, nothing freaky. Okay. Ew. Alright, this guy who looks like Jack Nicholson. Basically, when you remove the skin, you see how the highest points here are still bone. This is bone, except the cartilage, right? And then a face without, I wish I could search up a face without muscle but with cartilage, you'll still see that the nose is one of the highest areas. And these are the same areas. So the skin does really nothing for the form. It doesn't change the form of the skeletal structure. So just because you know that a face means you got to blend good doesn't mean that you got to go and bring in whole new values and whole new high spots. There's no way that this area here is as bright as this area here. This moves back. The highest point is right under the eye because that's where that socket starts generating. All right, can everybody write back to me what I said? What about fat deposits? A fat face is very, very different from a healthy face because a really, really fat, I say healthy because average, like, like non-obese. A really obese face, the reason why obesity is such a terrible disease is because it puts your skeleton under a lot of stress, right? Because what's happening is the function is no longer there. So a fat person face. The fat deposits completely reorganize the where the high points are. Now we see that the cheekbones, yeah, are still one of the highest areas, but not necessarily the nose. The nose is no longer one of the highest areas of the face. The nose is probably less than the cheekbone. So you have to make sure you bring in a lot of light if you're painting like a fat person. You have to bring a lot of light over here. All right. Okay, that's weird. So you see how these points kind of crush the nose down. They don't really, the nose is almost as bright. They're almost as bright as the nose. And then you've got a lot of the areas where you thought usually you'd have an edge, like right here on the cheekbone or the jawline. There's no jawline. But let's look up nice jawline. As long as there is some connection to the skin, where the skin and the fat haven't completely overrun the form of the face, that's where you get these severe edges in the face. Your painting is not a fat deposit face. It is not like a landscape of a fat person's face, of an obese person's face, okay? There's no dancing around it. All right, so that's what you want to do. You want to basically learn the fat of what you're painting, the amount of fat on the person you're painting. Typically, you're not going to paint an obese. You're not going to learn your basic average face. Your go-to face is not going to be an obese person's face. It's going to be pretty average. So this area here, yeah, it would be very, very edgy, and this area would be very, very smooth. If anything, fat deposits kind of don't forget, like when you get a really, really skinny person's face, this edge goes all the way down. If you've ever seen an anorexic person's face, there's almost no fat. You get a lot of wrinkles. You get a lot of the areas. The skin is no longer reinforced by excess amounts, not like average amounts of fat. So that seems like there's excess amount of skin. There's no fat to stretch out the skin and make you look more youthful. You look like you're aging even though you might be 21 or something. Another thing I really want you to try is the highlight on the brows along that on switch that happens right along here. Involve the hair in the light that travels along the face. The hair should be involved because the hair is also reflective. And this area here should be darkened just a little bit because it's starting to enter that far side of the cube, those two edges, just to complete the brows. And then this area connects right into it, just like that. The cast shadow of the nose should not be that dark. It should not be almost as dark as a dark spot. It should be just a little bit lighter. The skin reflects back. There's a lot of units of diffuse that are happening across the skin. And then finally, you're still doing these balls for the lips, these little balls at the end. Make sure that they're not just dots of the dark spot. They're actual shades that gradually reveal the cavity on either corner of the lips that are closed. And then this highlight travels on the high point, looking up of the lower lip. So no more outlining of the lip. You're still outlining just a little bit. Those dots represent a dependency on the dark spots. You should not depend on the dark spots to make form for you. The dark spots come after you've established a really, really good grayscale, like a washed out grayscale setup between your midtones, your highlights, and your slight shadows. Then you bring in your darkest darks and then start going as dark as you want to. or as dark as you're allowed to when it comes to skin. Okay, so let me keep smoothing this out. And then just a little bit of a sort of shadow, because the highest point is right here. The shadow should sit somewhere under it. This area is perfect. I haven't really touched this. I just connected the darkness all the way up. Because the dark isn't just coming from above, it's coming from above and in front. I'd also love to see some more shadow under the eyelids. Not just shadow caused by lashes, but a shadow caused by the fact that the eyelids are part of a sphere, and the sphere is three-dimensional. Another big thing with the face that you're painting is that the spherical shape of the eyes has been sort of forced into a more geometric shape. What's happening is that you're still creating like the slits and the representational, not representational, the symbolic version of the eye, where when you draw an eye, you draw this instead of drawing a sphere and then the lids wrapping around that sphere. And we still see, even though the eye is perfectly open, we still see some of the lower eyelid. Yours, it seems like it's drooping. The lower eyelid is drooping instead of wrapping around a sphere. I would love to see you try to just observe a diagram of the eye so that it feels like your eyes can blink. They're not stuck there as if a sculpture. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way back and just show you the differences. Filter, sharpen. And this is what I do. If I see that you guys are really pushing and you're hitting your later days of the 14-day challenge, I will critique you. You don't have to sign up for private tutoring. If you do, I mean, go ahead. But if I see that you're putting a lot of effort, you're going for the full 14 days. A lot of people have dropped out of it. A lot of people can't handle the challenge. But trust me, it's so freaking rewarding. It's the best thing that you could do for yourself if you want to be a portrait artist or a character artist. I always recommend it. I'll always recommend it. But if I see you really pushing, I will give you a critique. I'll make space and wherever I have to give you the critique. Either it's written or I do it on class hours. All right, before, after. Do you see what happened down here? You brought in new anatomy. The skeleton of the skull doesn't sit down here. So that's why you were speaking. There's a word for there. We use different words. All right, each word is a value or a kind of blending. Either it can be a value or a kind of blending. All right, it can be harsh edges or soft edges. That's all you have. Different values, hard edges or soft edges. That's all you have to draw. You can't use lines, you can't use color. That's all you have in the 14-day challenge. So if you're using the same word, which is the same kind of blending for this edge and this edge, you're telling me, as the computer that is ingesting this information, that there is a bone down there, which I, the computer, know there is not. Right? Any viewer is going to be a computer. Their brain is going to be the computer. They're going to read the info and they're going to be like, the face looks weird. I don't know what it is. It looks robotic. They're going to say some other dumb word that I don't know how to explain it. Like some non-artist person is going to say, oh, it looks rigid. It looks stiff. They'll say something like that. But when you get critiques, which is why it's so important, they'll tell you you're using a blending language for something that should not be bone. You're using bone blending for something that should not be bone. That's why it feels off. So before, after. Now there's fat here, bone here, where they belong anatomically. All right? Flatten the image, and I'll send this back to you. If you want your images back, just message me on Facebook. I can send them back really easy over there. I don't have time to upload them and re-upload them and stuff like that. Okay, this person here was saying they were having some issues. Actually, I'm not sure what they were having issues with. I'll just speak about what I see. You definitely have a lot of opportunities here to cast some really, really beautiful shadows. Okay, they're too spaced apart. Okay. I'm not sure what that banging sound is in the background. My window's open. It might be just like, I don't know what it is. I think it's the rain, like, falling. I really don't know what it is. It's annoying me. Let me close the window. Is it the rain? Oh yeah, it is the rain. Sorry. There's a bucket out there or something. But let me just cast these shadows. The further the shadow gets from the object casting it, the fuzzier it gets. And it gets darker the closer it gets to the object casting it, and sharper. So I'm going to be connecting these and then blurring them out the further they get. Alright, so you had a lot of these, a lot of chances for these. So basically I cast probably one of the higher ones and then a couple of the other. I just made my own. I didn't really copy what you were hinting at over here. If the cast shadows are reaching here and the eye is this dark, the cast shadow wouldn't end over here. It would travel all the way down across the face, and then you would get this whole area hidden in shadow. And I think that was the biggest issue here, that you weren't reading that that massive form indication. So what happens is this all sits under the same local color, so it can't go that dark. And I actually was facing one of these issues in my recent paintings that I was testing out yesterday. So let me show you real quick on Portrait Studio what I mean by this. Let's cast a shadow on this character. And you see areas that would have been the dark spots, so the darkest areas, we don't really have pupils here, but areas that would have been really high contrast, really visible, lots of lines of form, are suddenly completely hidden by the umbra, by the shadow, right here. And what happens is it's an indication of the light source's intensity. And if there's secondary light source, which there is, you can turn up the ambience, it becomes diffused. So this whole area becomes really washed out. So all these darks you have over here, you need to get a lighten layer and just toss one of them shades on top. It's not going to achieve that level of darkness because it's already been chosen. How dark everything is has already been chosen. The only thing left for you to do is indicate the intensity of the light source. And if there's no man's land light reflected on her hair, then there should be no man's light everywhere else as well. Oopsie. Let me get a new layer. Just like this. I'll blend it out, don't worry. Alright, so these cast shadows are caused by a really bright light, and you see how now there's like a three-dimensional form happening. It feels 3D because we're not treating the face as a face. What are we treating it as? Does anyone have the word for it? It starts with L. Starts with an L. We're treating the face as a anyone have the word? I just have to wait, there's a lag. Okay, and then this highlight travels all the way to the lips. So you can do this in the painterly style you did. I can only work with soft brush for the critique hours, but this whole lower half here. Okay, and then this cast shadow is much stronger. There's no outline. There's a sharper edge. Landscape, exactly. No, this class isn't all about the basics. Absolutely not. The diversity or the complication of the lesson depends on the diversity of the class, of the work that's published into the class. So it's not a class about the basics. I'm not here talking about light theory and how to cast shadows. I'm covering everything that needs to be covered in order to discuss the issues of the painting. If you watch the rest of my videos, you'll know it's not specific to basics. I cover some pretty complicated, like light situations. How to shade, how to think about, like my fabrics video, I think you should watch that. It's really not all about the basics. That's something I actively try not to do. Alright, so what happens over here is that there's going to be a lot of reflection. The only diffuse that's going to happen is just around the areas that are higher than other areas. So just along here, the reason why is because this elevation is different than this elevation. This is higher, and this nose is a lot closer. So that's what's going to happen. The nose is going to get illuminated along the bridge, the highest point of the bridge. And now look at how the head is feeling way, way more three-dimensional. It's like it's a part of its environment. And that's called having a light presence in your image when you have sharpness for the shadows, when you have variations between the sharpness of the shadow. So you're considering not only how strong the light is, but how distant it is from the object on which it's casting that light, from which it's casting shadows. So a little bit of extra light here on the sides of the nostrils. If the light is on a little bit of an angle, I guess you've chosen that. So I'll respect that. And then I'm just going to make it a little sharper. If these hairs are going to be sharp, so is this nose area. The shadow from the nose is going to be a little sharp. Okay. I'm going to cast a couple more sharp lights just around where the light spots that I mentioned, like the upper lip, the milk mustache, the cheekbones. All these areas really need some attention, but be careful that beard, that lower light area here. And I'm not sure what I was saying. I'm sorry, I'm reading comments and then in the middle of my sentence I just forgot what I was saying. But really important that you keep this beard sharp and kind of untouched. Don't interrupt it by bringing in new highlights. Like, you cannot use this highlight on the chin. It's too bright. It's not allowing that kind of thing. You can use it only in a small amount at the very highest bit of the chin. Probably up here. And not even as much as the brush allows, and with way, way less opacity. I can't talk today. I can't talk any day. A little bit of sharpness there. And then just like I did with the previous 14-day challenge image, I am trying to create a halo of shadow around the edges of the lips. Okay. Sorry, I'm really picky. If you ever watched me draw, I'll spend forever on a face. Okay. So let's take a look at the before and after. Filter, sharpen, unsharp mask. So any questions regarding the choices I made with this critique? Before, after. Diffuse, making sure that the darkest darks are not that dark. You're bringing in you're indicating another kind of light source here. The hair wouldn't be darker. It's just at the darkness level of that area. If you want to darken the eyebrows, you're going to have to darken the whole area. You're going to have to just darken that entire area out. But other than that, you can get away with a completely diffused dark spots if it's under a cast shadow. That's pretty much the only time, because you can't have full black unless there's a light source causing that full black. A light source strong enough to create one light source, not much diffuse, at the perfect temperature and the perfect intensity will cause beautiful blacks on the eyebrows, on hair. But when you have something under a shadow, you have to respect the local limit of that shadow. I have a question. Sure, ask away. Is that Princess Peach? Maybe, yeah. Sure, you can compliment them, of course. I'm just gonna drink my tea till you ask your question. Ow, I hurt my tooth again. the right side of her cheek, but not the left. Oh, it was just a design choice. Something he and I both overlooked. You can go ahead and throw that in there. But because it's so far away, this is farther away. This is really far away. It has to be as blurry as this. I mean, it's not that blurry. It shouldn't be that blurry because it's not that far, but it should still be far. Yeah, it just depends on, it becomes a design choice which cast shadows you want to, like, do you want to cause that many? It really becomes your choice if you want to do that. If you've cast enough, then you've already indicated the kind of light source that's happening. You don't need to cast much more after that. Just need to make sure this stays realistic. Sorry, how do you keep faces in perfect symmetry? Are you asking that question for Priscilla Bear, or kind of confused? All right, so I'm gonna before, after, much more 3D, and it's so easy to learn these values of a face. It's so easy because all you have to remember is that there are really, really strong planes of the face, really strong governing planes that if you remember that these are the highest point, like in this, the face here, let me just decrease the ambience and then increase the brightness. The face here is kind of in the same situation as this girl. And what happens is you see these areas that are decided to be the brightest, and how this area became the darkest, and how the chin barely had any highlight to it. This is all stuff that you learn by studying the planes of the face. This is stuff that you learn by remembering that there is a geometry sitting under everything, that there is a skeletal kind of geometry. So this is not a diagram of the skeleton. That's not what we added. We added a full face but low poly. And it's still strong no matter where you go. If the light is in that same situation as this girl, these cheeks will be the brightest areas, and you'll have very low, really strong beard and a very, very low contrast the further away you get from the light. These are principles. These are rules that that you can't ignore, that they're consistent no matter what kind of style you're trying to mess around with, because they will make everything look more realistic. They are based off of real physics that happens in the real world. That's why these things look realistic. This person posted this for me on Facebook. And I want to talk about something very important, which is the cube of the face, which you've ignored. So right along here is where that face ends, like I showed you, and this is the cube area, and this moves back here. The eye and the brow have no business hovering around across this edge. They need to represent that the edge is happening here. So the way to do this is to just replace the eye. I'm going to rotate the canvas. If you rotate the canvas, you'll see the issue. It's really difficult to see it, but you need to replace the eye so that it's, first of all, sitting along the horizontal line guiding the symmetry. And then it needs to not touch the side of the face. So I'm trying to push it so that it sits in that pattern. So before, you'll see the eyebrows were really, really high, and they weren't following the horizontal symmetry of the face. The next big thing is that you're using darks and kind of not really lights, but you're depending a lot on your shadows. For instance, you've used the same value word for the dark spot of the nose for the side of the shadow here. That's not how it works. And if that's how you see it in a photograph, the photograph has been edited. This is a cavity, this is not. This will not reach that dark a shadow unless this is only one light source and it's a really, really dark room. That's the only time you get these kinds of shadows where everything is just flooded in black. But typical kind of light sources that happen in a like a lit room, the darkest dark should be only in these areas. You've got you get so much no man's land that you're using along here that you shouldn't. Along here, that's reading as makeup. And I know you want to draw the dark, broody Dante kind of dude, but you can't bring in makeup where makeup doesn't belong unless you want him to be seen as wearing makeup, like unless you're okay with it reading that way. Oops. So the dark spot of the nostril should be the nostril only, of the nose should be the nostril. It shouldn't be anywhere else on the face, because now the skin is starting to read as splotchy and dirty. When the skin reads that way, you've pretty much exited the local color of the skin. It's no longer represented in your values as skin. It's representing something else. And the way you shade isn't by stacking your values. You don't climb your values on top of each other. What you're doing is you're laying them from one side to the other until it gets bright on one edge, instead of building them up this way, where they're on top of each other to create the three-dimensional hill or peak wherever it happens on the landscape of the face. So what's happening is you're missing, the light source is coming from above, but for some reason this area here is not light. So it's kind of outlining the edge of the nose, but not really. I haven't seen your reference, but I would suspect that this side here would be light if this side here is light and this side here is light. That's just what I've learned from this light source situation. Is that we get this half of the nose brighter than this part of the nose, because there's a cube in the nose. This part of the face here, traveling all the way up, and you have to be very careful where you place these shadows. Only the darkest darks get those shadows. Nothing else gets them. And then just along this cheekbone and along the side of the face, really. I'm not sure what kind of reference you were working with. I don't have access to it at this moment. But this half of the face should be a little bit more bright. This is basically the general area. Of course it's in variations, but it travels right across under the brow as well, on the side of the eye. If the light is reaching these areas here. If it's from above him, you would still get a little bit here, but it would be a lot darker down here. So it wouldn't be as sharp as I just drew it. It would be a lot less. You'd still get your cheekbones because it's coming from above and from the side. But it's very important that you're indicating where that edge happens. Okay, so let me choose a brighter shade. Too careful with this. So that's what I feel like was missing. In this whole area, there was no real relationship between the cube and the light. You were kind of drawing from the reference just a little bit maybe, and then also bringing your own values and your own memories of how light happens on a face. Across here. Careful not to make the brow too angry. It's going to age the person a little. If you, instead of drawing the dark, brow crease, just bring in some light. That'll also make it more feminine. Not feminine, but like more effeminate, or less ogre, more elf. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep going, try to make this work. If the light comes from this side and all the shadows are casting this way, as you've indicated by this one, that means the light is coming from this direction, and that's it. After that, it's just your responsibility to memorize where the cube was on the skeletal structure. It wouldn't hurt to break the shape of the chin instead of being so Grecian and Herculean, and just really give it like a sharper cast shadow like we see here, and then diffuse that all the way because it can't speak the same language as the dark spot. If you go back to before, we'll see it was very, very muddy, and that eye was really stretched out. Really, really stretched out. You were drawing symbolically on a 3D reference. You need to fit that eye on the front part of the cube, or else that has that stretched look. And then the light was a little bit confused as well. Let me jump into liquefy. If you give a male character this crease, they become very, very effeminate. You want to just get rid of that crease. Trust me, he's still going to be sexy, handsome. It's just, it won't be feminine, sexy, handsome. I'm not sure if that's what you want to go for. But just remember that little tip. The crease, I mean the arch. Did I say crease? The arch of the brow. Did I say crease for the arch of the brow? Did I say arch? I think I said crease. I'm such an idiot. I don't know. Check the video when I edit it. But yeah, this arch is what I mean. I don't know. I might be just going crazy. Did I say crease? Yeah, it seems like, I don't know, the hair I can forgive because hair is like it's like seaweed and water, you know, it just depends on where the latest momentum came from, and that's going to be the direction it follows. I'm going to cast a shadow just along here and then diffuse it. And then get another dark spot for the lash line. I don't know if you wanted it, I'm sure you did, this bloodshot eye. Just to make sure that you wanted it and it wasn't accidental, because I see a little bit of white here. The eye looks bloodshot, which is like a demon eye or whatever. So be careful not to make it look bloodshot and all that shadow, because I see like a little indication here that you want to shade it that way. Like as if it's not bloodshot, because that little light here, I don't know if this is you, I think it's supposed to be bloodshot. So see, now the nose is no longer flooded in darkness. To make the nose stand out a little bit more, all you really have to do is create a sharper edge. The nose is like a cliff. Okay, so let's get the male model. Oops, male, high, and let's change the light to come from the side. Alright, so do you see that where your light was brightest here on the nose? This is the one that you were missing. The lashes, I mean the upper eyelid, and then the one I was referring to before was, whoops, the hell? Coming from the side over here. Yep, there we go. So this entire edged area, his face is different. His face is less kind of muscular than his. This guy's face is less muscular than the model. But you can see this is the cube of the nose. It's going to get illuminations. This is going to get a cast shadow. All these areas are going to point to the fact that the light source is coming from the side. If the light source is coming from above, the top of the nose would be brightest like you painted, and the side would be darker, but then we would have a dark cheek, a dark upper lip, a light forehead. We wouldn't have everything, and the cast shadow would point down. Oops, let me make that work better. The cast shadow would point down. Why is it doing this? Oh, it's because it's on an extreme. Alright, so as long as this cast shadow is pointing to the side, it means the light source is coming from the side. And that's what you indicated. So it means that all of these areas here get the light from the side of the head. With this side being darker, this top of the cube, you see it? It's dark. And this side is light. Okay, so before, after, really, really muddy skin, you really could benefit from a 14-day challenge. Don't try to make masterpieces. I always say this. You haven't earned the masterpiece badge unless you've given yourself some time to study the form of the face. Study really, really basic fundamentals. Just because they're basic doesn't mean they're not easy. I mean, they're easy. That's just something I always say. Basic does not mean simple. Fundamentals are going to challenge you whether or not you're a professional. Fundamentals are basic fundamentals, meaning they are the foundation of what we customize later with our styles, but they are foundation knowledge. They are physics. Basic does not mean simple. Everybody write that back to me. I want 64 messages on my screen. Everyone write it back to me. Basic does not mean simple. It's anything but simple. It's stuff that allows you to make these kinds of mistakes. All right, so you had some anatomy issues, you had lighting issues, and you had a symmetry issue. Like a form symmetry issue and a form lighting issue. Anatomy, symmetry, and form lighting. 2 issues. All right. What else would I add? The chin sticks out a little bit, so we could stick the chin back in. Just a little for him to feel a little more feminine. But I just want to show you how the nose was flooding. All of that the nose was lost. All the detail that you spend in it is lost. But when we lighten up that shadow just a little bit, we can see where the nostril is, and we can tell, okay, this is the nose. It has its own space and its own visibility. Thank you, Eva. Basic does not mean simple. Exactly. Thank you. Good. Basic is complicated. That's deep, man. I should write poetry. I should write spoken word about form. How it's my elusive muse and how it's my forever girl. Like Aang says. Baby, you're my forever girl. Alright, so before, after. Flatten. Yes. Please grayscale your reference and just read it. Is it really that black? And on to this one. This was posted a while ago. Biggest issue right here from the get-go. This area here is too dark. It's too close to the darkness we have here. It should be much lighter. Because again, you're speaking the same word for this distance. This is probably like a kilometer away. And this is right here in the foreground a couple meters away, and yet they have almost the same value. That is not possible. It's a sunset too, so it's not complete darkness. It should be just a little lighter. Alright, now this feels like it's more distant. There's more of a atmospheric whatever there might be in the way. And then this area here was allowed to be too dark because the area before it was too dark. So this needs to be lightened up. Now it feels like a really misty morning. As for the composition, you've gone too dark too soon. It could be a little darker all around, a little lighter all around. Let me bring an example of something that I really had a lot of trouble with. This area here, I went full pitch black. And what that forced me to do was go full white. Right across here, which I hate. I absolutely hate it. I mean, it looks okay. You can get away with it. But what happens when Istebrak decides to bring in some color? Is there any color that exists in this value range? None. None whatsoever. I've got a color layer. I got some red. I'm going to throw it over. You cannot see this red. You can see it up here where there's nice grays to allow it to come through. Let's throw some of that red into the white areas. Nothing. Nothing is visible. Nothing. Only when it gets lighter. So when you go too dark, you'll face this dilemma as I faced it. I don't know what it was really. I guess I was just messing around with the thumbnails. Let me find one where I was a little bit more lenient with the values. I guess I can easily bring in some color here. This one is still a little bit challenged. Here it was okay. I did make a mistake of making him too dark because this is the distance here and this is the distance. I don't know, I messed around a lot with my thumbnails, but it's so easy to mess up. So easy to just make the wrong move. These are some really crummy landscapes. But what I wanted to show you next was composition. Alright, so don't go too dark. Trust me, it's a mistake everybody makes, no matter if they're a teacher or your peer. We're going to make these mistakes. It's easy to get a read with contrast. Very easy to get a read with contrast. The stream stopped. The stream should not have stopped. Yeah, it'll go back up in a second. Hello? Can you guys hear me again? Okay. I left my children weeping. Aw, that's so cute. Can you guys hear me? I think, yeah, you guys can hear me. Because now it updated this. Yeah? Okay. So what I was saying is it's very easy. It's a mistake that can be made by you, by professionals, by your peers, to going too dark too soon. So if you want to just give us some more detail, go a little bit gray. It's just a thumbnail, so it doesn't mean that you're going to have to decide how dark you should not be going this dark. It's a mistake I make, it's a mistake everybody makes, but if I ever had to paint that landscape that I referred to, I would have to go way light. I would have to go all the way as light as I can, and then start choosing areas that I really want to be dark. So I would darken this a little extra. I would darken this. I would darken this side. So the black isn't reached right away. And then now I have a landscape that I can detail and bring color into. You can't bring color into full black. And this doesn't seem like uh, something that it seems like something that you might want to take into a full painting. Like, it doesn't seem like something you want to ignore. You put a lot of detail, a lot of thought into it. Other things that you might want to check out are some references on some basic terraforming. What you've chosen here are really, really basic elementary shapes for landscape. You have such a wide variety of references to look at. Search up like Lord of the Rings set up, movie sets. You know, back when they went to New Zealand, they chose really specific areas that didn't seem like a repeated pattern, so it wasn't always boring. Every scene was like a beautiful, um, like a display of landscape. Everything was so unique, every shot. They put a lot of thought into what they decided to take a photograph of. You're the same thing. You're also the director of this movie here that you've chosen one scene out of. You have to look up some decent references and pick and choose, and you have the freedom to put anything together. You're not limited to what's out there already to be photographed. You can make your own thing. That's what gives you so much power. So you need to look up some good references. And here the sky is really, really, the horizon line is high. What you need to do is choose where the horizon line sits, where the cameraman is. If the cameraman is standing with him, I think the horizon would be a little bit higher. We're worms, and the world is the landscape. So for us, it's always going to be worm's eye view, no matter where we're going. You're in a city, you're in a public building, you're in the outdoors. It's always going to be worm's eye view because we see more of the sky. So the cameraman seems to be his level. So I recommend making it more sky visible and lowering the horizon line. Okay? And that's really what I wanted to recommend for you. No, don't save. I hope you guys heard all of that. Did you guys hear all of that? My high school teacher, my high school art teacher drilled into our head we go super dark, super high contrast with the stuff we did. That has stuck with me for years. That is so bad. I don't know. How much are they getting paid a year? Fuck. They don't deserve that. If they're telling you that kind of crap, they don't know how to fucking draw. You don't go that dark ever. Because, especially with traditional work, I mean, digital, it's very forgiving. You can go ahead and control you and raise that value up. But traditional, you're going to have to paint over that canvas you paid $50 for. Such a fucking lie. Lies. Lies, AutoCAD. Go to them and tell them, you liar. High contrast, my ass. No, don't do that. Don't do the opposite of that. Go grays, graduations of gray. But that's just traditional. Like, I mean, you can't really bring in a color mode on traditional. Um, but just remember that when you're mixing your colors, there has to be a gray that you're seeing. All right, so a couple of announcements. I forgot to include one little description of another part of the updates that we had for Portrait Studio. So you can purchase Portrait Studio on the website, on the store link. And I really recommend it to everyone who's trying a 14-day challenge. I don't think it's that expensive, but if it is expensive for you, I will be posting some minor screenshots here and there of different lighting situations so that you guys can benefit from it. But what I wanted to show you was load file. The different setups, the different times of day. It shows you the different contrasts available. So let me bring this down. Oh, I think it froze. Oh, never mind. So this is like dusk going out straight into midday, which is the brightest point, and then going back into dusk, which is the basically what it's showing you is that we used references of landscapes at different times of the day, and it's showing you the dominant color of the time. So in sunset hours, it's usually more orange in the sky than daytime hours, which are more blue and more white. So this is a really, really good way to memorize how different times of day affect your color palette. So go ahead and bring all the colors that you want to use, but remember they have to pass through this color filter. Alright, you also have ambience, which is the reflectivity around. Basically meaning is, are there plates around, which is reflecting, diffusing the shadows. And when you bring up the shininess all the way, you kind of see where that happens. Reflectivity. So reflectivity doesn't bring down the value so much as it reflects the area around. So this is the nighttime sky, and this is the daytime sky. Let me raise the brightness a little bit. So this is daytime. This was the daytime sky. Or right over here pretty much is the daytime sky. From here to here, and then it starts getting sunset. So when I turn out the reflectivity all the way, you can see how it reflects the night, like mirror-like reflection on the world around it. Bring down shininess all the way. Bring that ambience down. You see how with high ambience the object is no longer visible because there's too much light. Ambience is just the amount of light caught in the air. Not really caught in the air, but caught in the atmosphere around you, traveling around, bouncing off other stuff, diffusing all the shadows. If you don't want any diffused shadows, you want really sharp shadows, just raise the brightness up. And you've got those sharp shadows, that the room is dark with one light source, kind of like an interrogation room. Are you able to change the background color? No, you're not. The reason why is because the color isn't really the point of this app. What happens is that if we bring in color, we basically start to mislead the point of this app, which is to educational and pre-production purposes. Educational because I'm always trying to push form as much as possible. It's my permanent campaign. So bringing in color and skin tones isn't really what this is all about. You can paint those in later. It's about understanding the values under those colors. So easy to bring in colors, you guys. It's like the click of a button to bring in some colors for skin tone and stuff like that. Or preset colors that I made that I can color onto the model myself. But that's not the point. That's what references are there for. This is a modeling room. This is a clay model that you have access to. And we've given you everything really at the tip of your fingers. You can randomize sliders to have any kind of face. We've omitted color for the sole purpose of encouraging constant grayscale use. When artists are on their downtime, when professionals are in their downtime, they most likely always lean back into grayscale. I always lean back into grayscale on my downtime. I'm not a professional, I'm not super amazing industry titan, but it is a permanent learning experience to paint in grayscale, and this is why I'm always pushing this and campaigning for this. How much is being reflected from the environment? Depending on how the slider is bringing in. So reflectivity and then the shininess. So reflectivity meaning how much of the image you're allowing to come through. It could just be shiny but not reflective. And it can be reflective but not shiny, so it wouldn't really work like that. One of them has to be high in order for the other to work. This is like Silver Surfer kind of reflectivity, and shininess are all the way up. And then the skin value, you can decrease it depending on the kind of... I always bring in a little bit of shininess and then a little bit of reflectivity to move up with it. So always move them together because skin can be a little bit reflective. And then I decrease the value. This is a perfect setup, and you can always save it and then load what you had before. Load different instances of like all these settings, load again. Just observe the settings. Okay? You have male, you have all kinds of different features to experiment with and see how the light affects them. The bigger the nose, the more light it captures. So all of this I hope helps you guys. We're going to be changing a lot more stuff. We're going to be bringing in expressions if we get around to it, and we're going to be changing a couple of features here. So randomizer will have a control Z option. So if you have a randomizer, like a random setup that you want to go back to, you can control Z and go back to it if you kind of skip past it too soon, which is something I do a lot. And then finally, what we added recently was the rotation of the heads. So your model will do anything for you, except this in real life. But yeah, it's a great place to experiment. And this isn't just for artists, all kinds of people who just want to experiment with light, like photographers. You can also experiment with this. And it'll help you experiment a little bit with light. This is all realistic situation, realistic light physics that we've used in programming it. Have a great day, guys. Bye.